Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us to celebrate the graduation of our Spring 2021 veterans and spouses. I'm Mike Abrams, founder of FourBlock. I can't believe that we started this thing 10 years ago with just a small little cohort of 16 veterans in New York City and have since grown to be able to serve 700 veterans and spouses just in this school year alone, reaching folks as far away as Australia, South Korea, Ukraine, and all across the United States. To date, 3,000 veterans and spouses have completed our program and are now working at over 400 companies globally. And we have so many people to thank for our success. First and foremost, we want to thank the veterans and the spouses, first for your service to our country, and also for trusting us to support you throughout your career transition. I want to thank our board of directors. I want to thank our incredible national staff who work so hard to accomplish our mission each and every day. Our instructors, our career coaches, our leadership council members, and all the 80+ employer partners that we work with who host classes for us, who hire our veterans, and who support us financially. So it definitely takes a village, and we have one incredible community that we can lean on. So we couldn't do it without you, and we're sincerely thankful for it. The idea behind creating FourBlock came from a relationship that I had with a Marine who served during the Battle of Iwo Jima. And during my last couple of years on active duty in the Marine Corps, I served as a recruiter in New York City. And during that time, I got to attend a lot of different black tie events and military functions. And I had the honor of escorting him to these dinners. And he confided in me one night that when he came back from the war, that he had post-traumatic stress. It wasn't called that back then. But looking back at that moment in time in his life and knowing what he knew at the time, he knew he had it. He knew he was suffering from it. And he said the only thing that saved him was that his uncle came and dragged his hungover butt out of bed one morning, those are his words, and got him a job at Standard Oil in Stamford, Connecticut. And he thought it was funny that they put him in their Marine division, and he was sitting next to an Army veteran who had served in Normandy. And shortly thereafter, he met his wife, had a wonderful family, very successful business career. But he credits that job with saving his life because it gave him meaning and purpose again. So that sparked the idea that we need to get returning service members. We, our nation, our community, we need to get these returning service members meaningful employment as quickly as possible so that they can quickly become positive assets to our communities all across the country here. So what is our vision for the next 10 years? We want to build a community that is able to support every single veteran and spouse with beginning a new and meaningful career back here at home. We don't care if it's in New York City or Bent Elbow, Indiana. The only way that we're able to do this, is by building a community of service-minded people like you. And we're not teaching rocket science, right? It's relationships. And everyone here tonight who's tuning in, you are our secret sauce. You are how we get there. So thank you all for re-enlisting with us tonight for the next 10 years. We appreciate it. We sincerely look forward to continuing to work with you and serve with you in the years ahead as we make sure every single veteran and spouse can begin make a successful transition and begin a new and meaningful career back here at home. So we sincerely thank you for that support. We have a fantastic lineup here tonight. I know no one tuned in to listen to me, so we're going to dive right into it. And if throughout our program here, if you have any questions for any of our speakers, just go ahead and type it into your chat box there on your screen, and we'll make sure that it's asked. And without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce FourBlock's honorary chairman, the 31st Commandant of the United States Marine Corps, former member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and author of Leadership in the Three-Block War, which inspired our name, FourBlock. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome General Charles Krulak.
Thank you very much, Mike. I deeply appreciate your words. First and foremost, I want to thank each of you for your selfless service to our nation. But equally, if not more importantly, I want to thank you, your spouses, and your families for the sacrifice that comes with your service. Too often, the American public fails to recognize that sacrifice is integral to military service. And so thank you for your service, but most importantly, thank you for your sacrifice. I also want to congratulate you on your graduation. You've been provided an education that will prove invaluable as you move forward. In military, we often focus on training, but the reality is training is preparation for the expected. Education is preparation for the unexpected. FourBlock has provided you an education because it knows that we do, in fact, live in a world of the unexpected. In this regard, FourBlock provides an unequaled opportunity for each of you. Finally, I'm often asked, what single bit of advice would I give to ensure success in business, in the family life, and in friendships? And since I was a young lad, my advice has always been the same. Be a man or a woman of character. Be a man or a woman of character. And I define character in 3 areas. 1, be selfless. Care more about your fellow man or woman than you care about yourself. Do not worry about who gets the credit, only that the job gets done and done well. And remember that you can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to be there. Be there for your people. Be there for your family. Be there for your friends. The second is moral courage. Don't be afraid to tell the emperor or the empress that they aren't wearing any clothes. Speak truth to power. Never back away from doing the right thing, no matter how hard or what the consequences might be. I can assure you, I've never run into a boss who comes to work in the morning thinking to themselves, I can't wait to blow it today. They want to do well. And if you see that they're on the wrong track, even off by a couple of degrees, have the moral courage to speak up. You will quickly become one of the most important people in that boss's life. And finally, have a strength of integrity, and a strength of integrity that is recognized by all. Your word must be your bond. Your word must be your bond. Again, congratulations. Really proud of you. Go out and continue to serve and sacrifice. You've done us all proud.
All right, General. Thank you so much for being with us this evening and for all your time and your continued support. And I'll tell you that you have been there for us ever since we met a couple of years ago there. So sincerely appreciate all your time and mentorship and everything that you do for us as an organization.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thank you, sir. And for our keynote fireside chat, we're very excited and very fortunate to have Mr. David McCormick, CEO of Bridgewater Associates, joining us this evening. And moderating tonight's discussion with Mr. McCormick is John Tiem. And John and Mr. McCormick are West Point classmates. John's own veteran leadership record is very distinguished, to include being the longtime board chair of the Mission Continues, and a years-long executive speaker with us at FourBlock, specifically down in our Atlanta program. John's January 2020 FourBlock podcast interview is one of our most downloaded episodes, so please check it out. And John, just between us, I think you were actually almost about to shed a tear at one point when you were talking about going off to Iraq and talking to your family there, but just between us. But John served in the active duty Army for 24 years, had 3 combat tours in Iraq, served 3 different White House administrations, President Clinton, George W. Bush, and Obama. He was also recently nominated by President Biden for the position of Deputy Secretary for the Department of Homeland Security. He is currently a Citigroup Managing Director, the National Co-Head of City Salutes, and speaks to us tonight from his Atlanta home. So, John, it's an honor to have you, and over to you, sir.
Yes, thank you. Well, Mike, that podcast was in New York City, and you're right. It was a bit of a tear-shedding moment. Mike's a great podcaster interview. He gave me no prep to it. He just says, let's roll with it. Let's see how this goes. You're an Army tanker. You'll do fine. So, Mike, you're right. I when I started to talk about my family, I came close to shedding a tear, and you said it was between us. But now it's between all of us, whoever is on this great Zoom StreamYard action. So, look, thank you very much for inviting me tonight to not only be part of the moderated discussion with my West Point classmate, Dave McCormick, but to again be part of FourBlock, something I've loved doing really for the last 5 years. Down here with Sergeant Major Rowley, my old Desert Storm colleague in Atlanta. And hats off to all of you guys here in Atlanta and FourBlock nationally and internationally for fighting your way through these difficult last year and a half and figuring out how to continue to serve military veterans and military family members. So hats off to you, Mike, to General Krulak, and everybody on the FourBlock team. So it's my distinct honor to not only moderate the discussion tonight with David McCormick, but also I get to introduce Dave. Now, some folks might be like saying, wow, this is great. You have 2 West Point classmates. John's going to tell some tales out of school. David McCormick right now is probably saying, please don't do that, right? Like too many people are listening to this. I won't, David. I'm gonna stay on the straight and narrow. But I am going to probably embarrass you a little bit and just really, really, really compliment you for being what I consider to be like one of the greatest teammates that I've ever known. And you just look at David's career and you just every step you see the concept teammate. When we were at West Point together a long time ago, when we were at West Point together as classmates, he was a cadet leader, a cadet captain in the Corps of Cadets. He was also one of our top of our class in terms of academics, and he was the co-captain of our Division I wrestling team. The co-captain of our Division I wrestling team. Teammate. Then he graduates and he goes to Ranger School and he becomes the honor grad. And for anybody who's been in Ranger School, you know how difficult it is just to get through Ranger School, but how difficult it is to become the honor grad. You have to be one of the best teammates ever. Then he joins the 82nd Airborne, one of the best teams in the United States Army. And I say that as an armor guy, right? And he deploys to Operation Desert Storm in the first wave. Obviously, a teammate there, being a combat veteran. Gets out of the Army, and he finally, like all of you in FourBlock, he goes back to school. Now, unfortunately, the comparison probably stops for most of us there because he goes back to school and he gets a PhD at Princeton. Now, a lot of folks would maybe it's very individual, but for David, what he does is he focuses on writing a book to help the Army as we come out of the post-Cold War, right? Amazing that he would focus his attention there. Goes to McKinsey, is on a team that helps other teams. He leads a company, Free Markets, and then Ariba, a team in the private sector. Then he rejoins the United States government in the Bush administration under Secretary of Commerce, Deputy National Security Advisor in the National Security Council, Under Secretary of Treasury for International Affairs for the Bush administration. Teammate, again, obviously, to the Bush administration and really to America. Steps back. It would have been okay if he could have taken an individual moment to take a breath. Nope. He joins Bridgewater Associates, and for the last 10 plus years, he has been the teammate of all teammates, really ending in him now being the CEO of Bridgewater Associates. And the last thing I'll say is he's always been a teammate to me every step of the way of my career, to include as I came out of the private sector. I wasn't really quite sure how to figure all this out. The very first person I reached out to was Dave McCormick and said, what do you think, teammate? And he really helped peer mentor me through a lot of different steps. So now he's a teammate to all of you as he shares his wisdom tonight. If I get this moderator role down right, he's going to share a lot of his thoughts and be a great teammate to all of you. So I introduce you to my West Point classmate, to my friend, and to my fellow veterans leader, teammate, David McCormick. Dave?
Oh, John, thanks so much for that introduction. I'm going to apologize in advance if you hear a barking in the background. That's a new puppy that just joined our house. But what an honor to be here, and congratulations to all the FourBlock graduates and to Mike. We haven't met before, but what an amazing organization, and congratulations on 10 years. And General Krulak, just always an honor to see you. So thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Great, Dave. So we'll get right into it. And, look, take it wherever you want. These are just the questions that, we've come up with. But if you feel like you want to move into a different direction, go for it. So, one of the things that a lot of people, for guys like you and me, they often ask, wow, I can't envision this. I mean, how can you briefly describe your journey from the military to the private sector? We know about the PhD at Princeton, but how did you jump from the military to the private sector? What was that transition like, and what were some of the challenges you faced when first transitioning out of the military into the civilian workforce and beyond? Because that's what all these FourBlock graduates are going through right now.
Yeah, well, for me, the military was such an incredible experience and such an honor, and I really was very much up in the air on whether to leave the Army. And when I left the Army, my dad was crestfallen because he had always hoped I'd make a career in the military, and so for a number of years, even just until very recently, he thought I kept making bad career choices. And I went to grad school thinking I'd be a professor. And I got halfway through that and realized I didn't have a professor. I didn't have the right material to be a professor. And I started to talk to my brother, who was my younger brother, who also went to West Point, who gave me some advice. And I started to think about business and whether the experiences I had would translate to business. And in the end, what I realized was the things that we all learned, and all of us on this call, about leadership and about mission and about selflessness, those things translated really well to the private sector. And so I did a number of different things in the private sector. But of all the things I've done in my life, and I mean this sincerely, nothing was more fulfilling than my time in the military, and nothing prepared me more for the leadership challenges of business than that time, those 5 years as an officer. And so I just am so grateful for that time, and I think it'll put all of you who are making this transition in very good stead.
That's great. That's great, Dave. I think it's probably hard for some people to imagine that you weren't quite sure whether or not you're going to be successful out there post the military, and in particular, I think you would have been a great professor, but I think you got a lot probably energy. They wouldn't have been able to keep up with you. Mike Abrams earlier tonight talked about 700 veterans and spouses graduating from FourBlock this year. Pretty amazing, in particular, given the global pandemic, and 350 this spring alone for veterans and spouses. They've graduated from this Career Readiness Program. You saw it up there during the credit roll, so to speak. What advice do you have for these veterans and spouses who are trying to figure out what's next? I mean, what types of skills might veterans have that they should highlight as they approach their next career opportunity? And you talked a little bit about the selfless service there a moment ago. Your advice?
Well, my experience with hiring veterans after making the transition myself has been great, because I think, almost with pinpoint accuracy, there's a number of things you can count on. And those are things that you sometimes need to be able to translate to your potential employer. But the mission orientation, the goal orientation, the focus on team and people, the selflessness, the integrity, those are things that are absolute foundational in business and in leadership. And frankly, there's often not enough of those things. And so the idea that it's not about you, it's about building teams, and the idea that the mission comes first, those things really resonate with leaders that are trying to build great organizations and great teams. And so I think they translate really well. The things that I have seen that have presented challenges, and General Krulak referred to this a bit, is that the importance of giving open and direct and honest feedback up. I think you referred to a general as moral courage, but I think it's the idea of business in particular, the military as well, also, but the business in particular, the need to have people that are pushing back if things don't make sense and challenging their leaders is a really necessary thing. And sometimes the people that have transitioned from the military have to be invited and encouraged to really challenge upward, challenge their bosses, help them be successful. I can assure you, as someone now who is in charge of a big organization, that we do not have all the answers and we make a lot of mistakes. And having great teammates and members of the team that have the courage to push and question and challenge is really what's core to a great organization. So taking all those things that you learned in your military career and being able to apply those is very much about doing the things that made you successful in the military and transitioning them over.
Dave, that's a really good point. And it's not one that I think many veterans would, or military family members would think about would be challenging, right? And not so much managing up, but being really transparent and candid with not necessarily your teammates, and certainly the folks maybe who might be reporting them butt up, because that seems, most folks who are coming to the private sector is like, no, just do whatever the civilians tell you to do and just do your job, get it done. But one of the great things that I think veterans and military family members who've been through volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous situations is they've been through those situations. And so therefore, when it's time to react, what we need are folks to be, and you've mentioned it, I certainly talked about it in my introduction to you, is the most important thing, and General Krulak said, is it's the mission and it's the team. And when you do that and you pull all the filters away and you don't care, like General Krulak and you just said, who gets credit, then what happens is the mission and the organization benefit the most. So spot on. How you do that, of course, is, you want to be nuanced in terms of those communications. So I'm going to pull up an article that you published previously. Whenever I read these, and I read all the stuff that you write, you never send it to me. It's always Doug who always sends it to me to make sure he's a very proud younger brother. You referenced this quote. And so I'll say it. Everybody else will hear it. And then, for you, you'll get to re-register it. You said, quote, "On the return home after the long absence from society and industry, many of these brave men and women find it difficult to get the opportunity to return to their vocations. The places of work are filled up, having little money, having lost the facility for securing employment or the friends who may have helped them find it. They are greatly discouraged, disheartened, and their families suffer." End quote. That was pulled out of an article you published previously. Could you highlight, take us back to your emotional mental state? Could you highlight what was on your mind when you were writing this article?
Well, the crazy thing about that quote, John, the crazy thing about that quote is that quote was drawn from the New York Times in 1865.
Oh, that's right.
Right after the Civil War. And so this was the thing that struck me about that quote is the fact that as you read it, it could have applied to today. And it's really reflective of, I think, a national challenge and a national obligation, which is, and I didn't say it when I started, but to those of you online, thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you. Your country thanks you for all that you have done. And yet when you embark to make this transition as you are doing now, historically, our country has fallen short in helping veterans make the transition to the next chapter of their lives. And the great irony of that is that veterans are such an asset for our economy, for our business community, for our public sector. Veterans bring so much to bear, and they've often been lost in the shuffle from a national perspective and been inadequately supported in making that transition. So that the point of that article was essentially to make the point that we've done this poorly over and over again as a country, and that we should look to veterans as a critical building block of our country's future. They have been in historical context, and this next generation of veterans, the great veterans that are on this call, are the future. And we need to embrace them as such because our, really America's future depends on it.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I remember actually, and now this is, I saw you speak in New York City and you said this quote was from 100 plus years ago. And the fact that it's still applying now is, it's sad, but it's accurate. So, this is the next greatest generation. And I think they're starting to really show that really over the past decade, I think a lot because of FourBlock. So the next question, Dave, and because you're my classmate, I'm going to give you a little bit of a head start here in your mind this is the failure question, right? So, it's a real challenge for veterans. We've done so well in the military. We probably did well even before the military. But as they're coming out, if they're going to fail, likely. They're not going to land that first job right away. It's a dream job. They're aspirational. They don't get a call back for every job application. They send out resumes to Monster.com and everywhere else, these job boards. Then they land what they think is a really good job, but a few months into it, they realize, oops, maybe I was underemployed or misemployed, right? Not in the right spot, and it's not working out. Can you describe a time when it's hard to believe looking at your resume, and I know you well, but can you describe a time when you failed in your career, and how did you manage through that situation?
Yeah, I really can. And the lesson, it didn't always seem this way when the failures came, but the lesson I've learned is that the failure, honestly, is more valuable than the success, because it's in the moments of failure that if you're reflective, you learn the most, you gain the most, and that really can help you going forward. And as John, in your introduction, you said I've been at Bridgewater for 12 years, but an uncomfortable fact is that I became the CEO or the co-CEO 3 years after arriving at Bridgewater. The founder had stepped out of that role and appointed me to that with one of his proteges. And 18 months later, I was fired from the job. And I stepped into less responsibility. I thought about leaving, decided to try to stick it out and persevere, and then became CEO, I guess, again, 4 years later. And that moment, I disagreed at the time with the decision. I still, Ray and I still have some disagreement on what led to it. But the thing I agree with is I wasn't doing a good enough job. And that failure became a source of really introspection and learning and thinking about what I might do better. And I believe as a consequence, I emerged from that a much more confident, capable leader, a much more empathetic leader, a much more humbled leader. And so failure can be a good thing if you embrace it. And I don't think it's possible to really stretch yourself and push yourself if you're not failing sometimes. It's like skiing. Think about those of you on the call that have learned to ski. It's easy to not fall when you get to a certain level and make it down the mountain. It's not easy to get significantly better without taking some risk. And when you take some risk, you fail and you fall. And so it's a great teacher.
Wow, what a great story! And look, folks, I mean, even a guy like David McCormick not only has failed, but he's willing to admit to it. And he's willing to share it with all of us as a way to get better. I mean, that's terrific. And thanks for sharing, Dave. That's awesome. When you think about the military, right? And I think you probably get this question a lot, right? Folks look at you and they say Airborne Ranger, Honor Grad Ranger School, Treasury Department, Deputy National Security Advisor. But in the military specific, because that's our audience tonight, right? How did your experience, or how has your experience in the military impacted your leadership skills? How has your service furthered your ability to lead both at Bridgewater and also at the Department of Treasury when you and I were both in the Bush administration?
Well, I hope I've been able to carry forward those most basic lessons you learn as a military person, as a junior leader, about relying and taking advice and counsel from those more experienced, that platoon sergeant that pulled you aside and said, Lieutenant, here's what you're missing, or here's what you need to learn. The responsibility to try to lead by example, to never ask people to do something you wouldn't do yourself. The selflessness of simple things like being last in the chow line. I know that sounds like such a simple thing that all of you know just what I mean by that. And that lack of selflessness is so pervasive. Unfortunately, in other parts of the world, that thing that we see in the military, that selflessness is hard to come by sometimes. So those basic lessons really, I think, have helped me at every step of the way. And one of the things I worry about and try to be attentive to is not losing those basics, that basic humanity, that basic empathy, those basic leadership skills. Because when you get in the middle of a career and you're confronted by all these things, it's easy to lose sight of the fundamentals. And so I hope I'm not doing that.
That's terrific. Hey, Mike, I know we're a little bit at time here, but I really want to ask this last question of Dave that I had on my list.
Sure, absolutely. And I just want to note, if anyone else wants to ask a question, just go ahead and type it in there and we'll ask it. Okay,
I'll take the moderator's prerogative and ask one more question and then hand it back over to Mike, because who knows the next time I get to talk to David McCormick in front of a lot of people.
Sure.
Hey, Dave, you know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but others might not know. Bridgewater is a very unique culture. It's defined by radical transparency and candor among colleagues. Pretty cool. Sort of harkens back to what you and also General Krulak was speaking about earlier. Can you describe how you've empowered employees at Bridgewater to speak their minds and why this culture is so important to your company's success, which is very successful?
Well, the thing I've learned after coming to Bridgewater and spending time there and being a leader there is how much I didn't know about what was going on in terms of what people were thinking, and how much I cherish being in an environment where feedback and constant, putting your thoughts out there is not only encouraged, it's really required to be successful. And, you sort of get in front of a group of people and you describe what's going on in the company, and we have mechanisms by which people give feedback, and you think you did a good job. And there's, 10 people that say that didn't make sense to me, or I'm confused. I never knew that before. I never knew that my team members were thinking that I was falling short in a certain way that I didn't realize I was falling short. So the ability to live in an environment where you're all seeking success and excellence and having the benefit of constant feedback, it's an elite unit kind of feeling like we have in our military, where everybody's so focused on the mission that the thing you begin to cherish is the feedback. And when you get done with something, and if you're not getting feedback about how you can get better, it almost feels like you're missing something. And that's the thing that I've come to cherish and realize that feedback and honest feedback is such a gift. It's such a blessing. And it's so hard to create an environment where that is consistent and valued. And so that's the big learning.
That's terrific. Again, sharing, as always, best teammate in the world. Dave, I salute you, and I'll move off to the side. Mike, over to you to
Thanks, John. What a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
All good. I actually do have one question for you, David, but I think you would appreciate this. This was a book written in 1946 by a World War I veteran to help World War II veterans come home and integrate back into society. So I think Mark Twain said history rarely repeats itself, but it very often rhymes. So
indeed,
here's a military transition book from 1946, and it sounds like it could have been written today.
Indeed. Yeah.
So, but here's one last question for you. And it was a quote that you had in the Washington Post as well that stated, national service would go a long way towards solving some of the most important challenges our country is facing, to overcome our divisions and reaffirm our common purpose. You've also been a big supporter of veterans running for public office. So what is it about national service and military service that is so powerful? Why do you think that it would help bring us together and improve the quality of our politics?
Well, thanks for asking that, because I think it's really such a critical time for the country. And one of the things I think we all probably cherish from our military time is that you get into a unit and people of different color, different religion, different gender, whatever it is, they come together around that common mission, and preconceived notions fall by the wayside. And the person from Alabama becomes a partner with the person from Newark, and they build a team dedicated to that common mission. And people's politics fall by the wayside, and the people in that unit have already committed themselves to something bigger than themselves, to their teammates, to their unit, to their country. And we don't have enough of that, in my opinion, in public life. And so one of the things I've really been supportive of is veterans running for Congress. After World War II, we had about 80% of members of Congress who were veterans. Today, we have less than 19%. And the data shows that we have more bipartisanship, more getting things done in pursuit of our nation's interest when we have veterans in public office. And it doesn't have to be the military. And so one of the things I've advocated, along with John's been a big advocate as well, is national service, where people can come forward and serve their country early in their careers. And that's a way I think we break down the partisanship, break down the polarization, help people understand one another better, and minimize some of the fragmentation we have in our country. So I want to try to find ways and support ways to give all of our young people in the country the privilege that all of us had when we got to serve our country.
All right, great. And I think we have one question from LinkedIn. So let's see here from Sherry. Life lessons without obstacles is not learning. Dave, how were you able to keep the stamina when your character was being questioned by your leaders in time of employer's decision of letting you go in your role?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, because when you hit a roadblock, whether it's getting fired or failing at something, and that by the way, that getting fired from that job was not my only failure, but there's two ways to think about that. There's one way is to sort of step back and lose your confidence and really view it as a real setback. And another way to view it is input, data, and something to learn that's going to help you navigate the next rapid. So it's like you're whitewater rafting and you get flipped over. Well, that thing that flipped you over is a lesson that if you get back in the kayak and go down the river further, you're not going to get upset the next time. And that's how I tried to think about failure. The adage that which doesn't kill you makes you strong. Well, there's something to that. I think really being stressed and strained and being challenged and failing can really help you become much better at whatever it is that you want to do. And I think anybody that's been an athlete knows that, which is getting knocked down, pushing yourself to the point of failure is part of the necessity of being a truly excellent performer in your sport or in your job or in the military, wherever it is. And so seeing failure is almost gasoline, fuel to improvement is I think at least helped me get through it.
Well, gentlemen, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for your service and for your continued service. And we sincerely appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
Nice to be with you, and congratulations to all. Thanks again.
Thank you, sir. All right, ladies and gentlemen, up next is a recent FourBlock graduate who will share his experience in our program and what is next for him with his brand new full-time role. So Angel Reyes is currently a senior studying finance at Rutgers Business School. Born in the Dominican Republic, he immigrated to the United States at the age of 3. Angel is currently serving as a corporal in the Marine Corps Reserves as a cyber network operator and will be joining Citi full-time this summer as a financial analyst. So Angel, it's great to have you. Over to you, my friend.
Hello, Mike. Definitely thank you for having me. It's an honor to be in the same event as the many individuals who are also part of this event. So to pretty much kick it off for my experience, I would like to take it back to my junior year, which was my spring semester of my junior year, when I kind of realized I wanted to get more into the financial services industry, but didn't really have too much of an idea of what I wanted to get into, or at the end of the day, didn't really have that network or new individuals who worked at respective firms that I could, potentially see myself working for one day. So what I decided to do, which a lot of people don't believe me, is I would send out about 150 to 200 emails a day, just many different veterans across, many different firms, and see if I could essentially get a quick 15-minute chat with them to kind of pick their brain up a little bit, and then pretty much get more advice or insights on how to, as a veteran, get my foot in the door. And through that, I was able to meet individuals who actually recommended me to the FourBlock program. And, till this day, I would say it has been one of the greater decisions that I've made to be a part of, just because FourBlock at the end of the day gives you so many different resources and advice and insights that a lot of veterans may not really know after they get out of the service, essentially. And one of the bigger things that it really provided me was the opportunity to meet with a lot of different individuals across many different firms. And with that, I would essentially, after the event, reach out to them through email and set up another time for them to essentially discuss if, they had any advice as a veteran, how to, stand out when it comes to interviews, or how to essentially use my military experience and put that down on a resume, which, as veterans is always kind of hard to do when the actual role you may apply to doesn't really correlate to what you actually did in the military. But at the end of the day, as veterans, we have many different distinctions, such as leadership, communication, and initiative, and that definitely really translates very well in the corporate world. And for me personally, that's really what helped me out in regards to getting my full-time offer at Citigroup. And really just throughout FourBlock, it was really one of the main deciding factors of why I was able to actually get that role, just because I was able to meet individuals within a Citigroup and make that connection at the end of the day. So I really appreciated that opportunity. And one of the pieces of advice that I always wanted to give out to the recent graduates is to essentially, at the end of the day, always reach out to as many individuals as possible. Like I said earlier, I reached out to at least 150 to 200 different veterans across many different firms, and they not all of them always reached out back, but a good amount ended up reaching out back. And you'd be surprised how many different individuals may know someone who works at a respective firm that you could or do want to potentially work for one day. And I think that's definitely important, especially having the introduction is a really a good starting point. And another thing is to always ask, for advice or insights. At the end of the day, a lot of times as veterans, it's always hard to come back and try to take on the corporate world without any help. And I think having a cultural mentor, which FourBlock also provides, is essential, especially when you want to set that solid foundation, especially early on in your career. And I really, at the end of the day, thank FourBlock for the opportunity as well. And just the last piece of advice that I want to give out to the recent graduates as well is essentially things may not work out the way you planned. For me, essentially, it was a rough start at first, but I wholeheartedly believe if you take your time and put in the work in now, day in and day out, the results at the end will come out way greater than you essentially expected it. So yet again, thank you for having me, and congrats to the new graduates.
Thanks, Angel. We're very proud of you, man. And you start in a couple months, right? You got a little bit of time between graduation and when you start?
Yeah, so I saw full-time July of this summer. So I have about 2 months of vacation. So definitely looking forward to that.
Well, good. Well, enjoy it. We're very proud of you, and best of luck as you get started. And I envision you coming back to be a career coach for us here once you land there squarely and you get yourself settled. So give us a call.
Of course. Thank you.
Thanks, Angel. And now I'd like to introduce an incredible veteran advocate and the driving force behind Citi's Veterans Initiative, which helps hire military talent like Angel. So Ruth Christofferson is a senior vice president at Citibank, responsible for Citi Salutes, Citi's veterans programs, and the community development for the state of South Dakota. She is a retired colonel in the South Dakota Air National Guard. She is a wonderful and passionate veteran advocate and has been such a great mentor to me personally and supporter of FourBlock over many, many years. And we were joking before this got started here that we haven't been able to get our usual monthly lunches since COVID hit. So we've accumulated a whole bunch now that we got to catch up on. But Ruth, thank you for joining us here this evening.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. So thanks a lot for inviting me to speak to you this evening. As Mike mentioned, I served over 30 years in the military. I retired in 2008. Please don't do the math. And I'm not telling you anything you already know, but those years in the military truly impacted who I am today. It helped define the person I am. It helped define the employee I am for Citi. The camaraderie, the dedication and mission, and the honor of serving meant so much to me and lives with me to this day. Many of those years were served in the Air National Guard and while I worked at Citi. And I can tell you that was a great combination, and I continue my work with Citi and still am benefited by the fact that I was in the military. My time in the military has been similar to my time at Citi. I've had the opportunity to do a variety of jobs, advance my career, and meet many amazing people along the journey. Citi is honored to be a partner with FourBlock. Through our Citi Salutes programming, Citi engages in serving veterans, military members, and their families. We do this through programs focused on financial education, recruiting and retention, affordable, supportive housing, and employee engagement. There are many benefits of partnering with an exceptional organization like FourBlock that are very significant to Citi. One huge benefit of our partnership is the ability to have access to recruit outstanding veterans. Like Angel, who we heard from just prior before me. We're pretty excited to be getting him on the team. There are many organizations that work with veteran employment, and we use some of them as well. However, FourBlock applicants are always solid candidates that we know will do well at Citi. We have over 2,000 employees who have self-identified as veteran, as well as many military spouses and military family members. We know that veterans bring unique skills and strengths to the workplace. They have a proven track record of being team players. They're goal-oriented and very dedicated leaders. I know, I'm preaching to the choir here, but there are so many valuable benefits that, besides just sharing with veterans and FourBlock, we also work a lot with Veterans on Wall Street, where we talk with other financial services companies and really drive home the benefits of hiring veterans. Of course, another benefit of working with of our partnership with FourBlock is the high level of personal satisfaction that all of our employees gain each time they engage with other veterans at a FourBlock event, be it coaching, mentoring, whatever volunteer activity. They love it. We never have a shortage of volunteers if we have a FourBlock event. And since we're virtual right now, we tend to have volunteers sit in on. I was on a DC call just the other day, and I'm in South Dakota. So it's just an amazing aspect. I love the virtual concept. We all want to be in person, but as we can be virtual, I think we reach a larger audience and impact more veterans. A large reason that many of our volunteers are also are engaged like this is that they're also veterans. And what's better than being able to share your personal story of transition and experiences working at Citi than with a fellow veteran? We also have many employees that are not veterans that engage with our FourBlock candidates. And honestly, they simply enjoy the interaction with the candidates, are quite happy to volunteer. Without exception, anyone that has volunteered with FourBlock quickly realizes the quality and integrity of the work done by this organization. I know each time I've joined a cohort for a networking session or to give a Citi overview, I really look forward to the time when we get to the breakout rooms and we just get to talk about careers, shared experiences, dreams and ideas, and how they want to do their journey on transitioning. The whole Citi team is honored to partner with such an amazing organization. Congratulations again on 10 years. Congratulations to the graduates, and cheers to many more decades of serving our veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you so much for your continued service and for being with us tonight. And next time we have lunch, you're buying, remember?
Honest, I will. I can't wait to get to New York.
Have a good night. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you.
And next, I'd like to introduce Kelly Biskupiak and Susan Rattano-Davy, the founders of Prepare to Launch University, a company which guides women through work-life transitions. Last fall, FourBlock and Prepare to Launch U put together a pilot program specifically to support military spouses and provide career support for them as they figure out what's next for them as their spouses transition off active duty or as they continue on active duty, and helping them figure out how they can have a career and balance that active duty family life. So Kelly and Susan lead this program for us. And they have served close to 50 or so military spouses here over the past 2 semesters. We did our pilot program last fall, which was a great success. And so now we did 2 more cohorts here this spring, and hopefully many, many, many more to come in the years ahead. And Susan, I think we got connected through one of our board members, Lindsay. We did a podcast together. And you talked about your son who had gone to, or was in the process of going to West Point. And we just got talking about, this seems like a great fit, and it has been so far.
Yeah, it's been delightful. Thanks so much, Mike. Yes. Thanks for having us, everyone. And John and David, it's great to see that West Point education really pays off for you guys, and hopefully for my son too. So Kelly and I came to Mike through Lindsay. Our backgrounds are very complementary. I started out in big tech and went through a management role there. And Kelly started out in education with a focus on curriculum and design. So our skills have really lended themselves to creating great curriculum that focuses on the personal development piece of things and the professional development piece of things. And when we met with Mike, we thought, gee, you know what? There's this whole population that really isn't being well served. The military service members are. There are many opportunities for them to use their skills in a new way in civilian life. And many resources to help them, but not so many for the mil spouse. So we were really fortunate to do this pilot program in the fall, and momentarily you'll meet one of our graduates from that program. And we just finished just last week, we finished our winter cohort of 20 more military spouses as well. Our background, as I said, big tech and education. We are LinkedIn Learning authors. We have 3 courses through them. We work with major universities. We just did a program for Northwestern last month, and many corporations as well. We really feel like part of our obligation beyond training the students, and again, just to the point about education, is also working with the workplace to make sure they understand the value of either returning caregivers. We have 2 major products out there right now that are used or are resourced by many people. One is for people taking family leaves, and one is for people who have taken long caregiving breaks and want to return. So we feel like educating the public is part of our wheelhouse, making sure that those employers out there recognize the value that a caregiver, and in many cases a milspouse, has to offer. And the milspouse has a unique challenge in that not only are they often taking time out as caregivers, but they also are never really able to get any career traction because they're moving so much. So we have learned, Kelly and I have learned so much more than we thought we even knew or was even capable of learning about the sacrifice that the milspouses uniquely make. And our program, and Kelly will talk a little bit about the program, our program addresses that full complement of challenges they have, the personal, the professional, and when the students leave our course, they are a much more confident and far more marketable version of themselves.
Yeah, it's been such an honor for Susan and me to be working with the military spouses. We have learned so much, and we have such great admiration and gratitude, you know, getting in there with them and hearing their stories. And one big piece of our course begins at the very beginning of our journey, and that's really defining who they are. And then it's looking at where do you want to go? And how are you going to get there? And then what are the things that have gotten in your way? What are the things that have caused you to not be able to move? And create a plan around how you can make this career leap for yourself, even if you are still doing the moves, even if you are uncertain when the retirement date of your spouse.
Or still caring for family members.
Right.
And that could be children or elderly parents.
Right. And then we work with all the tools, you know, everything from their resume, their LinkedIn profile, their interview skills, their negotiating
scripting
skills.
and practicing, they're on the screen. And one of the things that our student will talk about also is that we do this in a cohort, and the intimacy of that cohort is so supportive. So a lot of the time it's practicing things on the screen, practicing in breakout rooms one-on-one, so that when the woman leaves our program, she's confident doing it with someone. And it's not just women, actually we have male spouses as well. When the spouse leaves the program, they're really ready to do that out on the market. And just as a proof source, just in the last, I think maybe couple of months, we've had our students land at companies like Google, Adobe, the Department of Justice, Facebook, and there was one more we wrote it down, Oracle. Yeah, so we've had some great success stories. We expect many more too.
Yeah, and one of the things that we are really so grateful for is that this is funded by FourBlock. We actually had a student who had found us on another platform, and we have a course that we offer to the civilian population. And she said to us on our very last call, it was like a gift to me that I got this scholarship.
She wanted,
program. She said, because I wanted to take your program and I knew that I couldn't do it if I was going to have to pay for it myself.
Right.
So the fact that this is funded and it is something that is available to the military spouse community by FourBlock is pretty fantastic. Yeah, we're happy to be a part of it. So without further ado, we're far less interesting than actually one of our students. Yes.
And Becky Blamires is here from Canberra, Australia. When she took the course, she was here in the States. And Becky had an HR background, and she had kept many of her skills current. But like so many of us, and Kelly and me as well, had taken some caregiving time and found that she was drawn to those fully portable jobs, the paraprofessional jobs, the gig jobs, the jobs that were less than she could have done, but provided the kind of flexibility that she needed, both as a milspouse and as a caregiver. And in coming into our program, we watched right on the screen, Becky, we watched you bloom from someone who was a little tentative and quiet at the beginning to someone who actually became a real leader in the cohort.
Absolutely.
So Becky is here from us, from Australia. It's already tomorrow in Australia. We just figured that out. And without further ado, Becky, please tell everyone your story.
Okay, thank you. Well, it is welcome to Australia. It is actually Friday morning here. So my story is pretty similar to a lot of other military spouses around the world. I had a long career break. It was 15 years. I wasn't expecting to have such a long career break. And although I had worked, as Susan just said, in some HR roles, and I was confident in my resume and I was confident with my interview skills, I wasn't really confident in the message that I was sending out. And I wasn't really happy about the direction that I was going in at the time. I spent my 15 years, like most of us do, working in different voluntary roles and in part-time jobs. So I didn't have any gaps as such in my resume, but I did have quite low expectations of what would be available to me in terms of employment. So there are three aspects of the programme that I'd really like to highlight that stuck out for me as being really strong and beneficial. The first one is, as Susan and Kelly have just said, they start by taking you right back to basics, really. And we started off by really identifying who we are and what we wanted in the future. And it was quite an emotional experience for quite a few of my cohort. And it was also quite frustrating for some of us that we weren't getting straight in applying for jobs. But I think it was really important that we did look back to see where we'd come from. And it was interesting what David just said about getting feedback, because it was almost, I was thinking as David was speaking just now, it was almost like spending a few weeks having your own, getting feedback from previous colleagues. It was almost like a performance review of the time that I'd spent out of the workplace. The second part of what I'd like to talk about is the support and the camaraderie that I got as being part of the FourBlock and Prepare to Launch group. So each week we were talking to each other. We, as Susan just said, we went into breakout rooms. We critiqued each other's resumes. We practiced interview skills on each other. We talked about our previous experience and identified who had what strengths that perhaps they hadn't recognised before. And again, that was more about giving each other feedback. And again, the first time that some of us had had feedback from an independent source for quite some time. And then the third thing that really strikes me about the Prepare to Launch programme was being part of the FourBlock Connect team. You had such great contacts with other employers, and Susan and Kelly themselves have great links as well. So I know that a number of my colleagues and my cohort benefited from those links. So what happened for me personally was going through the programme, I realised that, excuse me, my expectations for what I was going to do at the end of it were a little bit off balance, and that I was really settling for something that I didn't really in my heart want. So my plan was probably to finish the programme, come back to Australia, find a job that would be part-time, that would be in a school, so it would fit in with my children's schedule, temporary, so that I wouldn't feel too bad when I moved again with my husband. That was really what I could see for myself in the future. What I realised as part of the programme was what I actually want, but I didn't think was realistic, was I wanted something where I would have the opportunity to progress in a career. I wanted to work for a company or have a job title that other people would recognise. I wanted to not be the only one that travelled as part of my job. So I wanted to be out and about during my working day. And I wanted to feel that the job that I did, the occupation that I went into, had a positive impact on my community. So after I graduated in December, I returned home, found a house to live in, got my kids into schools, got my husband settled into his new position, all the normal military spouse things that we do. And I also found a job, which was in a school, which was part-time, which was temporary. But the difference this time is that I haven't settled. I've kept looking, I've made connections with other people, I've had lots of conversations and networked. And last month I interviewed and was offered 2 separate positions. And the role that I've accepted isn't actually the best paid of the 2, but it is the one that lines up most closely with my values. The role that I've accepted and I'm about to start is with a company that is, or an organisation that's very well known and respected. It's full time. It definitely has opportunities for progression in there. It involves some travel and some overnights away from home. So a little bit of space for my children. So I'm having to prepare them for that. And even better than all of that, it's a position that I can keep with me if I decide to move with my husband if he gets posted again. So it's something that I'm very excited and happy about, and very, very grateful to FourBlock for. So my advice to other military spouses, just while I think about it, is that job search skills are only part of the preparation in terms of the journey to find a job. And this program offers so much more than just the job search skills. It wasn't an easy experience and it was really hard work, but I think it was really worth the time to invest in myself in such a safe and a supportive environment to really find out what you want to do next. And it definitely gives you the skills and the confidence and the FourBlock connections to go on to succeed. So thank you.
Wow, Becky, congratulations. That's a wonderful story.
Thank you.
That's amazing. So thank you for your service as a military spouse, and congrats on your future career here. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Susan and Kelly, as well, for everything that you do in your service. And we're very much looking forward to growing the program. I know we're 3 minutes over. Just want to say thank you all for being with us here tonight in celebrating the success of our veterans and our spouses. We're humbled to have such an incredible community supporting us, and we're committed to continuing to serve veterans and spouses for another 10 years here. So if you want any more information about our courses, our podcast, our National Leadership Council, being a coach, being an instructor, or any way that you can engage with this, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. Just go to our website as well, and you can get a hold of some of our national staff. So again, thank you so much, and have a great rest of your evening.